Hello, everybody. Welcome to ConTech Exec Podcast. Today, I've got a great guest with me, Steve Dell'Orto from ConCntric. Now, Steve, you didn't get started with ConCntric. You've been in this construction business a long, long time, and I kind of want to know more about kind of that journey because I know as a former GC when I was working out there, I was always looking for technology solutions to kind of help me along my way. And you just decided to start your own, seems like.
I did. I spent 26 years mastering the craft, if you will, developing, building buildings in the commercial sector, of course. Anything that was, whether it was an office building, hospital, airports, apartment projects, big and small. It could be just like a United Club lounge for $1 million in an airport. Proud to say, also built some very successful, multi-billion-dollar projects. But, my experience doing the small and the large projects up and down was that the industry has got its challenges. There's a lot of outsiders that like to talk about how backwards we are in our industry and how slow we are to adopt technology. I don't think that's very accurate. It's a very complicated, non-linear process.
Yeah. I will agree with that. And I will say I'm guilty of calling ourselves a little bit backwards, just simply because I'm a little bit backwards sometimes, and it may be, guilt by association, I guess, a little bit. So I am one of those who say we're a little bit slow on the uptake, but I would have to say, since I was part of it, I'm part of the problem.
But to that point, the reason why I started ConCntric after a successful career as a general contractor and executive was there's always been a lot of focus, and there's been some great improvement on the standard operating procedures and the use of technology, point solutions, and at platform scale to service the project management, the construction phase of the project. But very little focus on the front end of the project. And what I mean by that is like the very earliest moment that a developer or somebody recognizes the need to go build something, and then you start thinking about designing it and the budget and all the pro forma financial stuff, all the way through having subcontractors bid out and on board and ready to go. There's that moment in time where you're pretty much done with all of that planning phase, and now it's purely a construction project. But leading up to that, very little in the way of modern solutions. There's an enormous amount of data that is really going unharnessed. And when you think about a process where you're striving to plan effectively, estimate and budget and plan with the goal of having a predictability of outcome 2 or 3 years after you actually start the project, to not leverage data is absolutely insane. And what drove me to leave and start this up was recognizing that is a big, big problem, and also recognizing that the front end of the business, it was an area I got very passionate about, and I dare say very good at. That's where profitability, the risk profile of the project, the foundation for the relationships, that's where all of that table is set. Yet it's the least served. And it became the biggest pain point for me, was a collection of pain points. Why can't we do it this way? Why can't we do this faster? Why are we having these issues downstream when they could have been solved at the beginning? It all spoke to people don't have enough time and bandwidth. They're already overworked because they're manually having to, do everything literally, 2-3 times over. Redundant entry of data numbers from Excel to Excel. The lack of the ability to communicate with owners and to help tell the story for them to be able to understand what's going on over time. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it this way. I'm going to go solve this problem. Data is a big part of it. A platform and not a collection of point solutions is the only way it can be solved. And even back in 2019, the idea of with data some form of machine learning and artificial intelligence, you would think that there'd be an application for that when you have, a lot of well curated structured data. Now look at where we are with AI. So that has been a core part of what we're building in a platform, but in a staged approach. But anyway, that's the genesis of ConCntric. It just came from the very pain points that all of our customers and everybody I talk to out in the market are feeling, because Precon, they've recognized, is the most important phase of the project development. It's where the profit, risk, and the experience is being determined, and solve it there. A lot of the other problems that they're treating with Band-Aids, that all goes away. And you get,
Yeah, you know, self-help books have been around for a long, long time, right? And the whole, if you fail to plan, the idea you plan to fail. And pre-construction, as far as I'm concerned, is that plan, right? If you're not looking at the very, very beginnings of how it gets started, who's going to be involved, what questions are there before you ever get going? I remember I used to get sets of plans, back in the old days when I had big gray areas, right? We've got these gray areas. Well, it's supposed to go in something like this, but that's for you to figure out, later on. Well, wouldn't it be better if we did, kind of analyze this plan first and go, hey, why is there such a gray area here? Is there some details that we're missing somewhere, something in the specs that we're missing that's not correlating? Why don't we have this? So some of the same questions. And, those kind of things are even scalable from small operations to large operations. Small operations, you got a small operator, you have a small business person who's out there going, why can't I get out in front of this? Get this thing done. They find themselves losing money because they ended up, not being able to solve those things, or the client at the end of it all is stuck with a large set of change orders that may have been able to be in discovery from the very, very beginning. So I absolutely, all of this resonates with me. And I noticed beyond, ConCntric. Now let's talk a little bit about the platform. I'm interested in, like, how does it kind of work? Where does it start? How does that work for your clients?
yeah, what I've seen in my career is this evolution where in the early 90s, most projects were just that tried and true, hard bid, delivery process. The architect and the owner's been at it for 12 or so months, and then they dump it on the street and they just let everybody race to the bottom. And that experience became quite litigious and contentious, and people started to want to have the contractor come in and be a partner. And so now you've got more involvement. Now you've got more process that never really existed. And we, over the decades, have been putting together some form of process that's largely human reliant. But when you now inventory what we do, whether it's a CM at risk, contract structure, or design build, doesn't matter. You're expected to, as a contributing stakeholder, look at all things related to time, scheduling. What is the plan during Precon on how do we even get out of the gates to start construction, permitting, that sort of thing. So just think about the time element. You got the, many variations of cost. You've got the estimate itself. You got value engineering. You've got like pro forma management through establishing some targets and really trying to design or drive design decisions to achieve that said target. There's 40 facets to planning a job. We've inventoried them. And so, fundamentally, what the platform does is digitize these workflows, because they're all in ad hoc Excel spreadsheet form among teams, among companies. How do we digitize the best of the best practices? And we have a leg up. I mean, the builder, DNA that we have in our company is, far more in tune with the needs of how to do this right than somebody coming from the outside. So, all of that very bespoke process is digitized, united within the platform. So you're not dealing with 40 different things. They're all integrated. You can come into one hub that we are, the owner, the architect, everybody can come in and collaborate within it, have the benefit and access to the data to do their respective work, or at least just get an update. But among these 40 workflows, the data is now being structured foundationally. So the work that you're doing on the project today can benefit from the last 5 or 10 very similar projects you've done. That helps you kind of short circuit a lot of the manual work. And it also gives you the ability to even model and forecast in the future what a similar project might also look like, you know, going forward beyond today. It's absolutely critical to have all of that working in unison, because none of these facets of Precon operate, exclusive to the others. And I don't know how you would do this, trying to stitch together a bunch of point solutions, and then you sacrifice the data integrity, you sacrifice the collaboration. You're not solving the human efficiency from the standpoint of all the things that can be automated and done, better and to a deeper degree than just the human can do. And now you think about with AI and what we can do with Amplify, which is our agentic AI solution that is part and parcel of the platform. That's how we're taking what took 10 people to do and administer on a project down to 5. And I think we're not that far away from having one person be able to do the work of 10. Does that mean people are going to be losing their jobs? No, we don't have enough people in our industry to support the work that we have today, much less the work that is, a byproduct of population growth and all the things that are really going to drive trillions and trillions of dollars of increased demand every year. So it's a force multiplier. So
Yeah. So
training.
one is, so do you also get your subcontractors involved in this early phase of pre-construction? I've heard a lot of folks saying, hey, um, especially from like a lean standpoint, when they start looking at it and they go, hey, we really want to get these guys involved. They're going to be able to see things. They're going to be able to understand things that maybe we're not picking up. Is that also involved in this platform as well?
Yeah, when different projects and different teams bring in the subcontractors and vendors in different ways and at different points in time. One of the more common practices is an electrical subcontractor, a mechanical subcontractor being brought in a design assist or a design build capacity. It doesn't matter what label you put on them. If they're going to contribute during the pre-construction phase, there's a need and a reason to have them involved, and they definitely are part of the interactions within the platform. But when you also get into the purchasing, people, just to be clear, purchasing, procurement, buyout, they're all synonyms for bidding the work out to the subcontractors and having somebody under a lump sum subcontract agreement perform that specialized work. Well, you go through a process, and so they get engaged in the platform either directly or indirectly through that process as well, which occurs at the tail end of Precon. And we have a lot of exciting stuff that really helps both manage that process. But another thing that GCs also deal with is the Precon people are the ones, often involved in, the buyout process. But some companies, that's an operations role, but they're siloed in their own respective phases. And our platform actually provides a unified environment for them to come together and jointly work through this whole procurement and buyout process in a much more controlled, collaborative fashion. So,
Yeah, that's a huge deal, especially just from my experience, especially having the engineers involved, the person who design said system. I don't care what's an electrical system or whatever, lighting control, whatever those kind of things are. But when you start missing pieces between those siloed information, right? Or you start missing calculations that should have been in there. Hey, this doesn't make sense. And I just from personal experience, literally had to go through a set of plans. I had to do the math, on the electrical plan for this lighting system. It was like, this is not right, guys. And so here I am bringing, and this is mid construction. I'm bringing in the electrician. I'm bringing in the engineer. Bringing in my math, and I'm like, guys, let's sit down here. Let's like look at this. This didn't get caught. Why? Why is this? Why does this math not match up? So again, if you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? It's one of those things, and so I certainly see the value in that. Now, it leads to me on the next thing. This only gets amplified in like large capital projects, big projects, right? The one miss does, it becomes larger, right? Because the scale of the project, maybe you missed something on, some sort of ripping item or something like that, and then you got 50,000, 200,000, a million square foot of whatever. So I kind of speak to that because I think the scale of these things and being able to plan it at scale becomes even more valuable.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Here's why.
Love it.
Everything's relative. So the people building $1 billion project or multi-million square foot facility, there's more commas, there's more zeros, and there's more of everything. But relative to the overall size of the project, proportionally, a miss is going to represent that same fraction. We have customers on our platform that are doing $50 million a year in construction work in place. So not mega projects and not ENR top 100 folks. If they miss something on a $3 million project, in some instances, it's even more costly. It's more detrimental because just the cost and relative to the overall. The neat thing is, and it's exactly how we're positioned, is the 40 facets of Precon, the vast majority of those, you're doing those same fundamental, or should, with a small job that you are with the big job. You just have maybe more people involved, certainly more commas and zeros. Precon is pretty universal. So what we have done carefully is to position our platform to be universal in that it supports the customers that are doing a $5 million project in the same way as our customers that are doing multi-billion-dollar projects. It's just scale.
Just scale. Wow, that's interesting. Because when I was just kind of reading over your stuff, it seemed to me like your stuff was geared to more complex projects, large projects. But you're saying this scales from whether you're doing a restaurant remodel all the way up into airports and things like that.
Yep. I mean, everybody should be trying to keep track in a much more modern way all of their historical costs. Everybody needs to communicate with their client what's going on over time with the budget, the design. Everybody's tracking the issues that they need to solve for the design to progress and ultimately be of high quality before it goes into construction, so on and so forth. So this caters to everybody. And with the data, and now even the smaller projects can operate as if they were, building one of these big projects with the use of technology that they probably in the past didn't have the internal expertise to go find or afford. We've pulled it all together in one platform that's going to really propel them forward in their own growth strategies. And we have a lot of conversations with our customers about how they see us helping them
get to the next level
and get to the next level, how the small guys can start operating and competing against the mid-sized companies, how the mid-sized companies compete against the big, large, monster-sized GCs. So
I've been thinking about that. And I've been thinking about that a lot when it comes to so I was at Groundbreak. I don't think you and I don't know if you were there or not. I thought you were.
I was.
We didn't get a chance to meet. We should have hooked up. But I was thinking about that. I was walking around. One of the thoughts that I had, I'm looking at all these thousands of people that are there walking through all these different solutions, going, kind of, hey, where do I start? At some level, some of the smaller ones are like going, man, where would I start, off on this kind of thing? And then I was thinking about these larger companies who are kind of, moving maybe mid-size, moving into that next level. The digitization of their workflows um, is going to be at some point, and I'll let you speak to this more than myself, but I feel like that digitization is going to be almost like mandatory for some of these, larger jobs where, hey, do you have this? Can you give me a risk assessment based upon real digital information? Can you give me, a schedule assessment of how this is going to roll out, and those kind of things? And and I think maybe that's going to be, ticket for entry here in the next 2-3 years, where that's how they move in that next level. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there already. We're seeing our customers finding great success in really separating themselves from the pack, differentiating themselves when they're competing for work. Because the owner category and all the people that are in the decision-making process of who to select to be their builder partner, they've they've done it the old way. They've been burned. They're tired of having that 5 years of sleepless nights, not knowing how bad or how far over budget or how late the project is ultimately going to be, because I've seen that movie time and time again, and nobody's come in and really changed that trajectory. Well, we have. So they're asking these questions in the RFQs, the RFPs, the interviews. When I started my career, they were only focused on how you're going to build the job, the resumes of your project manager and superintendent, and they didn't give a rip about what you did on the front end of the job.
Yeah, the rest is
Now
on the
they
rest is on you, right? Hey, it's in your court now, and then I'll take you to court later if I don't agree
Yeah,
with you.
but now they do, and they've wisened up to realize that for the most part, they're going to get a schedule from the 3 or 5 competitors, plus or minus a month. They're all going to have resumes that they're going to put forward that could conceivably run and build the job. The magic is in who sets the table for success, who's got the track record, but who's bringing something different to the table. And they're asking very specific questions about risk, about more collaborative methodologies to keep that design and budget aligned. Track record on creative, innovative ideas and solutions, you name it, as our customers are saying, hey, this is who we are, this is our culture, and we're very innovative. And we're also bringing forward a first of its kind AI pre-construction platform that we can all collaborate in for the benefit of the project. They're going back and figuring out that we're actually improving their win rate. They're winning more work to the tune of improving the win rate by 20 to 30%. I know at my time at running the company that I did, that was a massive difference maker. And so it's proof positive that owners are expecting this, just as you were pointing out, it is the ticket to entry. And on the same reason, because you brought up Groundbreak, what I also saw in the market outside of Precon, because Precon is the area that we're focused in, is there's also so many other needs to improve the industry in other areas, like even in the construction phase, that we as ConCntric, myself, with my years of experience, I'm focused on this, but there's other founders out there that have founded construction companies having come out of the industry as very successful project managers and superintendents and owners of, contracting companies that have all this experience and these pain points, and they've chosen to invent technology to solve those pain points. So I pulled together this group called Built by Builders.
Right.
And, that's where we can come together as a resource to the industry with all of these different elements of the industry being solved. And so that, our, brothers and sisters who are builders can come to us and know that we've walked in their shoes and we're building companies with this intimate knowledge of the problem and how best to solve it. Trust us, as opposed to maybe buying software off the shelf from some technology company that's never even picked up a hammer. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations, not only with technologists, but also folks that have kind of gone your path where they've been in construction for many years. And they're all at some point, realizing they need people like you who have been in the industry to actually understand the context of the problem, right? Because I've seen several. I think I just did a podcast, or I just did a post the other day about I had brought a technologist kind of to a job site. We had full PPE gear on. It's 105 degrees in Texas, and the software is not working. And this person at one point in time had been very vocal about, oh, this should be super easy for said, whoever. And I'm like, okay, that's a bold statement. I hear you. And so there we are out in the field. And of course, what happens is, well, the technology fails, and we're all sweating, and he's sweating even worse. And he's starting to realize
it's still working.
yeah, he's starting to realize very, very quickly that, hey, when you're out there in the field, I mean, just at the base level, with foreman level, superintendent level, and your software does not work, guess what? It drags your whole day. You're done, right? Whether it's, you're checking people in and out, whether you're, trying to get time done, whether you're trying to track quantity, I don't care what it is. If your drone doesn't work when you're sitting there trying to do a progress, map of something, guess what? You're in trouble, because you need that stuff to be there. You need that stuff to work, because you need that data, right? So I thought it was a great lesson for that person. But I started to see it as like, this is what technology companies need. They need to have an innate understanding of exactly, possibly end user, and then end result of just one day's worth of, this is not gonna fly. So I thought that was interesting from that. But to your point, the Built by Builders group, a lot of great companies in that group, a lot of I say educated members of that, right? Because again, I don't think that technology should be leading construction. I fully believe in construction should be leading its technology.
And I think the reason why I think the industry gets mislabeled as being slow to adopt technology, I don't think there's been great technology that's been developed for the industry. And we as builders, we don't have time. We don't have the margin to take big risks for something to really not fundamentally work. So we're not going to suffer fools. I saw firsthand my time, as a contractor, um, my time as a contractor, walking past my people doing nothing but, excessive data entry. So you get outsiders that say, I'm going to solve this problem within the context of technology. And all they've done is exacerbated the inefficiency problem that we have with the precious resource that we have of people.
Yeah.
It used to drive me nuts to have project engineers. All they're doing is slaving away on a laptop, because it's the data they have to put in to get a report that people are convinced they need to have in a meeting, and to track a problem that probably wouldn't have existed if that same project engineer were out on the job site working with the trades to figure out the problem ahead of time and solve it right then and there. Instead,
Right.
They're working it in paper. So it really comes down to, you've got to make less work, not more, with your technology. And I think that speaks to every single one of the members of our Built by Builders community, is that we're all smart enough to know, informed enough to know that when we deliver software, there's got to be a pretty significant time savings and a rationale that, use this, it's going to give you back all of that bandwidth that you no longer have because you're, up to your eyeballs. The last thing we need to do is be giving software that requires more data entry, more manual, whatever. And then you're just making the problem worse. And that still happens. There's a lot of software out there built outside of, the people that know, that are, you know, you're imposing, you're
Yeah.
adding to people's faith,
Yes.
and they won't adopt it. And it's not good. So anyway, it's exactly with what we've done at ConCntric is we want to, everything that we do is about the, deletion of a field or a click, anything that can really automate and scale back the human effort it takes to get a given output. And it is exciting in what is possible today, not even just with AI, but just with good, thoughtful software development and the automation that you can do behind the scenes. We're already seeing it. I mean, saving customers hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in people's time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, my consulting business, when I work with my clients, that is one of the things, the feedback that I get, because one of the things that I do, I like to interview not just the executives on the team, right? I want to interview the people on the ground, because if you want to find out about somebody's business, about how well things are going, you got to kind of get into the weeds a little bit with those folks that are amongst it, right? And one of the things that they always tell me is like, don't give me another tool. I don't need another tool. My day is filled with tools that are supposed to help me. And to your point, what happens is it just ends up stacking more stuff on their day, and less about solving problems, more about entering data somehow or looking at data somehow, rather than easing their time. They're freeing up their bandwidth to go do something that's actually probably more of a priority, than it is to just be dropping in data.
Yeah.
So I hear that all the time. And again, that's scalable, as you say as well. It doesn't matter whether you're a small size contractor, large size contractor, mid size contractor. Everybody. And that's what I think I noticed at Groundbreak was everybody's got the same problems. They're all sitting there. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that Groundbreak board, but it had like all the golf tees in it. Did you see that? I took a picture of the thing, and the one that was filled up with golf tees was the one that says streamline my processes. Streamline my processes. Okay. Well, obviously a ton of these folks have broken processes because they've got too many tools, too much stuff on their plate, and then they can't get to it all. And so they feel like their day just continues. One continues into the next, and it's always the same thing, right? And they can't break that cycle. So I hear that all the time. But you had an important point, because there's a term out there, everybody's using, it's called, it's adoption, right? It's the next level of I guess, accepting technology into your environment. What technology to accept, and is the field going to say, hey, yeah, this is of real value? So your experience with adopting your tech, obviously you've had some good feedback on it, right?
We have. It really starts with, first actually solving a real pain point.
Mm-hmm.
So we listen and ask a lot of questions. We don't want to, we got an enormous amount of builder experience and DNA in our company. That's part and parcel of the platform. But we're not just building it from our perspective. This is very involved with our customers and even the prospective customers that we work with. So it starts with that. Design is huge, good quality design. And we have an amazing design and engineering team. And to be able to take complex issues, everybody thinks about, every job's different, so there's can't be any really fundamental process. That's not true. How do you build something though that serves all but is flexible enough to handle the one-off situations without entirely customizing things? We're nailing it. I mean, the design, the intuitive design, again, make less work, not more, starts with the design. And making it intuitive, because the last thing people have time for is to sit through 8 hours in a conference room listening to somebody drone on and on and on, train you on their software. So we want this to be as easy as, your iPhone. My daughter was 2 years old and she was navigating on the iPad. It's just, they get it. And
Intuitive, yes.
it starts
Intuitive.
with the design, but the adoption, it's an entire journey, and we're selective. We won't actually engage companies if we don't feel like they're ready. They may have, I hate to say it, but I can because I got silver hair. We get the old near retirement folks. Why would they change? They got a few years left. It's kind of the technology stuff isn't coming secondhand to them. They're going to resist it all day long, and I don't blame them. But what we're also seeing is a generational shift where there's younger generations coming in that they don't have the knowledge those people do, right?
Right.
But they're also quicker in the last thing they want is a clipboard, Excel, Stone Age tools to do the work. They expect apps and AI and all of this stuff. And that's how people can recruit and retain the talent that they need. You got to find a way to balance the two. So as a platform and with what we're doing, you're over the next few years, if you're a company that is realizing I better move on this or I'm going to die. It'd be like Ice Age shakeout with the dinosaurs. They're not gonna survive. It's not about not doing as well. It's just not going to survive. So you get after it because all of that knowledge is going to retire away and you won't have access to that knowledge anymore. But that knowledge can kind of get institutionalized within a platform with structured data. The younger people who don't have that knowledge, but they do have the proclivity to adopt and leverage and be quick with technology. Now those two things coming together in this moment of time is like, in golf terms, it's like moving day. This is about the time that I need to start making my move if I'm going to be on the leaderboard.
Right.
And then through the adoption, no matter how much effort we put in the design to make it perfectly intuitive, we also are rolling out new stuff constantly. So we invest heavily in our customer success team. And we got the very best team that works closely with our customers to make sure that they're supported. This isn't just about like an IT help desk. These are people that are there to help guide, make them aware of the new expansions of the platform, and just be at the ready if our customers need a little help with something. So it's the entire journey, that adoption, to have good adoption like we've had. That's what it takes. It starts from the very, very beginning, and it never ends.
So I was on the customer support side of it. I've been there as a solutions engineer, so I totally understand what you're saying. And I always found that if you become a good listener in that part of the deal, and then you can translate that information back into the product, because there were plenty of times where I had aha moments. I was in construction for 30 years. I don't necessarily remember every, thing that kind of came up, but then there were, times when things came up. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay. Yeah, that might be a good thing. We really need to kind of focus on that maybe in this product, to kind of, help that along. So I definitely can hear that. But to get back to kind of adoption, do you think that, because we kind of started out this conversation a little bit about slow moving in technology, and we're kind of dragging our knuckles a little bit, but that all comes to adoption, and I would say that might just relate to the technology. We didn't like it, the early technology, so we just realized it probably wasn't going to work for us, and so we're waiting for something better to come along, and now we're starting to see better adoption rates because we've got better products. We've got better services. We've got better support, those kind of things. I kind of just wanted your thoughts on that.
I think also technology has just become part of our everyday lives. I don't care how old you are. Everybody's got a smartphone these days. Everybody's generally using an iPad. So there's a greater appreciation for what, you got ATM machines, you're no longer having to balance your paper checkbook. So all of that, I think, has evolved to a point where there is an appreciation for technology. I don't think you can live without it. And I think more and more people are embracing it. Again, back to the generational shift and change, at least within our industry. It's becoming easier. It's become easier. I think the technology on the whole is probably becoming better, but I still think that there's a distinct advantage within any industry when you have subject matter experts with that domain expertise. If they're literally actively leading, building those companies and can influence the strategy, how it really needs to work. I'm not talking about just hiring a couple of, people with a few years of experience to say, hey, we've got builders on staff. That's not the DNA of the actual solution. When you have that, I think heads and shoulders, it's a better product. You're going to have better outcomes, and adoption is just going to be that much more effective. But I think too, we're also at a really, really interesting moment where with AI, people are coming into this, and I would say generally across the industry, we're not embracing it, as I think we're warming up to it, but it's not embraced. But I don't think that's a surprise. I think there's a lot of people outside of our industry in the same boat because it's all coming at us so fast.
Yes.
But this is here to stay. This is not the flavor of the month. This is not going to go by the wayside. We embraced this from the very beginning, and we're in stealth developing our entire agentic architecture, investing heavily in it, and have delivered that to our customers a year early, the beginning of this year. And I think what people are starting to learn is the acronyms, LLMs, and all this other stuff. What they care about is, how do I leverage AI to get information fast, chatbot, but that's basic. But how now what is this agentic AI? What does that mean? And what they're figuring out, like with what we've developed with Amplify, very smart agentic architecture that is sitting on top of data that's structured the proper way for its given intended purpose or industry, is like the most powerful combination, because now you can literally tell Amplify, our solution, to do things in the same way you'd be hiring a kid out of college. And now you got to train them. You got to monitor their work, look at their output, adjust, and then it's considered done. With Amplify, you do that once, if anything. You don't have to do it over and over and over, depending on how many people you're hiring. So the power of getting stuff done with Amplify allows you to get the work done of 5, 10 with one person. Are you eliminating jobs? No, you can't fill all the jobs you need. But what we can do is start to reduce the pressure you're under to find those people that don't exist, and now grow your company to greater levels because you've amplified the capacity and the power of the people that you do have. And you're allowing them to do the smart, thoughtful, planning, relationship-oriented work, and the mundane tasks can be pretty much automated at your command. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's a great point that you bring up when you say looking for those people that you've got more jobs than you've got the capacity to fill, right? You can't fill all the jobs you actually need because there's not enough people qualified to actually fill those positions, and even the ones that are applying for those positions aren't there yet, right? But you need to be able to bring them into a situation where you don't have to continually monitor their output, train them up, those kind of things. We need that these days for certain. So I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of people get confused by thinking, what else can this person do? Well, you really need them to do this one thing very, very well. And if you have that agentic ability to help them do that very, very well, giving you the outputs that you're requesting rather than having to go back and check, no, that's not it. I need this. No, that's not it. That I need this, right? You've already got that system set up within that. I think that's very, very interesting and a great point of view on that. I know there's a lot of people out there worried. A lot of people worried in the industry about, is this going to take my job? And you hear you hear both sides of the story. You hear, no, the idea for AI is to make you better, right? Make your job not necessarily easy, but make it better so that you're more productive, right? And then you get the other side that says, well, at some point, it's going to replace you. Um, and I don't know about that. Again, I'm kind of out there. I'm on the fence.
I mean, there are industries where where you do have um, balance in terms of you've got the people to do whatever the industry does, and AI comes in and eliminates jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But the building industry is a growing shortfall of talent at the trade level and at the professional level in the millions.
Yeah.
It's growing because here's why. We're losing a third to 40% of our workforce by the end of this decade. It's 2025. We're almost into 2026. Talking about whatever, 4 years. We're going to like retire out all
average age. Yeah, average age of the skilled worker is what now? 56.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
not replacing them one for one.
Yeah, it's like a 1 in 7.
We're
Yeah.
growing this massive deficit at an increasing rate at the same time with population growth projected by 2040. Oh, whatever, 14 years from now, you have now 25% more people in the US alone. When you take whatever 300 million, 320 million that we are today, and you add another 80 million to the mix, highways have to get bigger, more hospitals, more schools, more housing. We have trillions of dollars of infrastructure that has to be replaced currently. That's just the status quo, and it's not sufficient. When you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars, that's demand. So demand is going up at the same time the people that can service that demand is going down. That gulf is getting wider and wider. It won't be solved with humans. You need a force multiplier that can get more out of those humans to meet that demand. That's the name of the game here. And so people do not have to be worried about being replaced by AI. They're going to get out-competed as a company, or you as an individual might be replaced by an individual that actually has mastered AI.
That's right.
That's
you got it.
Threat.
Yeah,
So
you got to dive in. If you feel it's a threat, you're going to have to dive in, because I agree with you. This train has already started moving a long time ago. It's not going anywhere. There's trillions of dollars being invested in it. We're going to be putting in data centers and all those kind of things over the next 3 to 5 years that are going to support this. Yeah, it's a massive industry, and it's not going anywhere. So you definitely feel like we need to dive in.
Yeah.
Steve, I appreciate you giving you a bit of your time today. I really do.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic conversation with you. And I hope to have you back sometime, because I always like to just revisit. I'm starting the ConTech exec alumni group, and so I want you to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Sign me up, and I'll happy to do this anytime and as many times as you want. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this one. Steve, before we get going, I just want people to know, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of ConCntric? I know it's spelled a little different, so I don't want people, going to the wrong place.
If you Google it, you'll figure it out if you're looking for pre-construction software, but it's ConCntric, ConCntric.com. Come to the website. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I love to make friends on LinkedIn. So, or any one of my teammates. So we'd love to talk to you, whether you're a builder of any size, an owner that's looking to have better outcomes on projects. We want to talk to everybody. So I appreciate the opportunity and the plug, Robert.
Yeah, man, not a problem. All right. Well, thanks again. And we'll see you next time on the ConTech Exec podcast.
Great. Thank you. Bye.